Peace, beloved, peace. It's your homie, Young Content, the unofficial sensei of the culture, mastering youthfulness and contentment and NFTs. And there's a whole lot of GU stuff going down right now. This is a huge, huge honor to have a legend mogul in the making. Well, he's not in the making, he's already made. Chris Clay from Gods Unchained himself. I never thought I'd see the day. My bucket list is complete. Can't wait to dive in conversation. What's going on, Chris? Welcome to Live with the Sensei 23. You're the GOAT.
Well, thank you for that introduction. I don't think I've ever been described as being on somebody's bucket list, but I might have to use that in future introductions when I meet people.
Bucket list is good. You know, some people jump off a parachute, skydive. Some people want to play GU.
Been there, done that once, yeah.
How's your day?
Yeah, going good so far. Just getting started here in Sydney, Australia. Nice, bright, sunny morning.
Righteous.
Not too many planes landing at the airport these days as we're in lockdown, but we're doing okay here.
You got people flooding in. Shout out to all the people. Samara says hi. Rodo says what's up. Jennifer from Top Shot says Gods Unchained. Woohoo! Yes, you know Jennifer. We're gonna dive into a good conversation. Clay the mogul. Yeah, Clay. Can you tell people who don't know who you are, and what are you a part of? That's huge in my opinion. I should say.
Yeah, so I'll sort of give you the life in a nutshell. So, you know, a long time ago in a land far away, my original claim to fame was I wrote the first character setup tutorial on the internet for Alias Wavefront Maya. That's where I got my start in technical art, you know, doing animation, VFX, character setup. I've been an art director. I've been a game designer for most of my career, you know, doing combat systems. You know, my big claim to fame, obviously, originally was MTG Arena game director. Had a lot of fun there at Wizards, bringing sort of magic to life in fast fun mode. And then now at Gods Unchained, it's trying to push gaming into a new direction where, for most of my time in the gaming industry, gamers essentially don't have any rights. When you read those terms and service agreements, it's like the company's got everything. They own your account, everything you've paid for, and they can take it away at a moment's notice, and you've got no recourse. And it's one of the things that stuck with me, having worked on a product that I expected to live decades plus, and knowing that all that time, effort, and energy that people were dumping into it weren't theirs. And I think it can be better. We're working to make it better, and with each baby step. As I continue to learn about this crazy blockchain space and it continues to evolve, I think we're getting closer and closer to realizing a different sort of status quo. I think it's going to take some more time to get there, but we're getting there each day.
Yeah, you're disrupting every status quo as we speak with Playtoearn. Probably some of the earliest OGs in the space. I know in 2018, DCL Blogger posted something in his Discord. I hopped in. I saw the Coinbase Ventures thing. I said, I'm got to go in. Then I ended up losing those cards. It's cool. Rebuying back in. And I play all the time. My community and I play. We do plays. There's so much cool stuff I have to talk to you about. First off, that Immutable hat you're wearing. Fire. I want one. A lot of Immutable X talk all over the internet. How grateful you are to have Immutable on Gods Unchained.
Yeah, it's obviously a big move for me to come to Immutable, moved across the globe to join the company. And it's been a rare opportunity, for me to be here and help sort of shape the growth of the company. And, to see the needs of Gods Unchained and to start building a platform that will not only serve to meet the needs of Gods Unchained, but ideally a larger I don't even know, like the ecosystem, I think would be the right term for it. And in many ways to try and show the way. We've got other people out in the space that are doing great things. And as we all sort of learn what works and what doesn't, I think what these foundational games do is then let us take it into the mainstream and overcome a lot of the negativity that I think you see out there. I read articles just like everybody else, and mainstream gamers right now I think are fairly against NFTs. There's a lot of talk about how blockchain is destroying the ecosystem. So to have something like Immutable X where I can confidently say it's like, nope, we are super efficient. Like we're doing better than AWS in terms of like you know, electric costs and harming the environment. Um, it's still a challenge though to sort of break out of, you know, what people are experiencing on the crypto side of things into what that narrative is out there, and you know, being able to, you know, come on, you know, shows like yourself and try and change that message and educate people a bit is part of what I'm looking to do. And I think there's also some hostility too, because it is a disruption of the status quo. Like one of the ways I would describe it is, you know, we had our Stay Played Get Paid campaign, and that was user acquisition in a very different vein. It's like, we are going to go pay you to come and play our game for a week, accomplish missions, and just come play. We'll give you some ETH. It'll be grand. And that's very different from, you know, what the ecosystem today runs, you know, on games. Like, you know, the big corporations, you know, combined spend billions each year on marketing, and you know, marketing, they want that money to keep flowing. And if you have a disruption where, you know, especially like on the small scale, small companies can just pay directly into their players, you know, keep that money within the ecosystem versus having going out, like it changes everything. And you know, humans don't like change in general. We're kind of resistant to it, so there's going to be some hostility there. But I think as the narrative, you know, grows and as people come to understand it, you know, it is going to cause a shift.
Yeah, evolving, spreading those butterfly wings from the cocoon. I know it's tough. But I think you guys have built the right cocoon inside Gods Unchained. It's literally the right setup. It wasn't always perfect, but it's beautiful. What is that now?
I do think we are in the chrysalis right now. We have not spread the beautiful butterfly wings, but you know, we're getting closer each day as we sort of are the maybe more like that gooey muck as we metamorphosize right now.
I think you're a humble man for saying that, but for me, just the ability to wake up just for the waiting for the weekend. It's kind of like me waking up for Saturday morning cartoons, grinding the tournament, seeing if I could beat Caution Fun or some of the OGs, try to take a victory, and or even try to disrupt some flows, so some 25. Because once you win 25 games, right, yeah, you get crazy things. Before we go into more Gods Unchained, I wanted to ask a personal question. What does Chris Clay love to do? Like, in your heart of hearts, what do you love to do? Now, what do you do? What do you love to do?
That's a hard one. So yeah, like, what do I do versus what I love to do?
Yeah.
Victory!
You know, ultimately, you know, what I've done throughout most of my career is, you know, shape experiences. So yeah, my first true love in gaming was just moment-to-moment gameplay. So like, for anybody who, you know, played Gods Unchained, you know, before I joined to where it's at today, it's, you know, focusing on just the flow. So like, sometimes in the early days, I did actually get into, you know, Unity and adjusted animations and things like that. Not so much these days. But you know, my first love is just in that moment-to-moment gameplay. It's the difference in feel between something that takes, you know, 300 milliseconds and 500 milliseconds, and getting that tuned right so that players ultimately don't notice it happening, but they still grok it subconsciously. It's like when you don't notice all of the elements, but they still tell you what they need to tell. That's like the perfect flow state. I love that. You know, what I do today though is, you know, ultimately it's build teams. You know, it's go and find, you know, the right people and getting them, you know, into the right seats, you know, and helping them grow. You know, as I've, you know, moved on in my career from, you know, being an individual contributor to, you know, now being a game director, you know, what gets me up in the morning and then what lets me, you know, sleep happily at night is when I get to see the successes of my team members. You know, ideally, if I'm doing my job right, I've set them up with, you know, the right tools, you know, the right resources, the right partners to go out and do great things. And, you know, I became a game director because I've lived the other side of it as an IC, where I've been micromanaged, you know, I've been yelled at all the time, and
those are
I
never
felt
fun.
like not fun and not the environment I want. And I believed I could do you know, a better job of, creating a team that works together, succeeds together, and like anything else, I've got my own imperfections. There's things that I could do better, but seeing the team succeed, that's what makes me feel good these days.
I love that. I love that. It's definitely, if you were, um, a Roman emperor, you would be in a dev team, and you would just be leading them to victory all the time.
Yeah. Now, let me be clear. If I was a Roman emperor, like, I would have been stabbed in the back and murdered in my sleep at some point.
Man. He's like, oh, you talk about blockchain, play to earn? No, we want our denaries.
But luckily I live in blockchain times and not Roman times.
So your first ever experience with NFT gaming, play to earn, is Gods Unchained, or is that something else?
Yeah, no, I had obviously heard of Bitcoin and Ethereum. I had known about the space, but never quite went into it. Largely because my hot take on it from the outside before I joined was it's just going to get regulated out of existence. Like, it's too big of a threat to sort of the status quo.
I felt that way too.
But after I had left Wizards, when Robbie and James sort of reached out, it sort of got me interested in the space, and deep dive into that. And GU was my first sort of blockchain experience. Set up my first wallet, purchased my first ETH, then purchased my first cards, and true to form, lost my first wallet when I moved from Sydney to Sydney from Seattle. And that's actually, it was a great experience in that it made it real on.
It touched some heartstrings.
It like in the, one of the good things about sort of like the current gaming world is when things go wrong, ultimately the company can fix it. Like, if you lose access to your account, company can get it back. In the blockchain world, when I lost those cards, it was like my car got stolen and my physical cards were taken. It's just gone. Like, there's nothing, and I can't get them back. And it made the space more real for me. And it was a formative experience in my understanding of just how this blockchain thing works and what makes it interesting and unique.
Yeah.
And painful at times.
I love that. The chat is going crazy. You guys are dominating right now. We got 27 viewers. People are saying, what's up? Paul Edison says, Rat Attack. Sensei Clay. Gib Wings. What up, Young? When Wings, Gib Butterfly. Change is coming. When. Much sad. Yeah, very sad. I never was into trading card games, Clay. And your game got me in. Like, I never thought before. I used to go to, like, these little Magic the Gathering meetups and play, like, Tekken. And I just be like, these guys are nerds. And then now I'm fully developed in it. And it's because of that play to earn model. The art is great. Well, as soon as I open a pack, that was like unprecedented at the time. Things on Twitter were like, oh, check out this dungeon, or the way they open the packs. And it's crazy. And what are you looking forward to bringing in the innovation of play to earn? Like, with all that innovation that you guys already have, I know you got the Gods token. People will ask, hey, what is Fuse? What is Fuse going to do with Gods token? Do we buy Gods with Fuse? What's the scarcity and rarity look like? What is the next level here you see?
Yeah, so some of this is there isn't a playbook yet. Like, some of what we've tried to do, as we're finalizing the Gods white paper, is allow room for experimentation and iteration, because there isn't a right answer in the space right now. There are certainly answers, and we think we have some of them, but over the next year and years, we're going to have to play around and see what works. When it comes to Gods Unchained as a whole, like, I think even in its development, you see the strengths and weaknesses that like I bring to the space, in that when it comes to the game itself, we're in a pretty good place. The moment-to-moment gameplay is solid, but where we really need to push now is in those greater cycles. So it's not in like the minute-to-minute gameplay, but it's like in the play session to play session. It's like in the day-to-day. It's like, why are you doing why when you wake up the next day are you going to play again? And this is where, the Gods token, where things like Flux and Fusing coming back online start to fill those gaps in the overall matrix. It's like daily, it's like getting daily quests up and running. For Flux Fusing, I know one of the big questions has often been, like what's happening to Flux?
Victory!
Like, is the Gods token just going to replace it? And I haven't seen the Gods token replacing Flux, because what Flux itself does, because it is a resource that you earn through playing well, is that is what protects the GU sort of ecosystem from botting. In theory, because of how the game works with leveling and experience, if we removed Flux altogether and just relied on the Gods token for fusing, there would be a high incentive for people to just run up bot farms, go join games, do actions that aren't going to win you the game, but you're still
like
going to be
50
acquiring
accounts.
cards. Yep, and then in theory the ecosystem gets flooded. Gods token will play a part in creating NFTs within the Gods Unchained ecosystem, but we're still a little bit of time away before all of that comes online. I think the exciting thing with Gods, and this comes from just again, I've been at Immutable now for just over 2 years, sort of learning the space. The initial assumption when we brought Flux and Fusing online, oh god, it feels like way more than a year and change ago, was players will earn the core cards because we're not selling them. You can only players can get them to Meteorite. That play and earn players would be able to get these cards on. They sell them, and that sort of starts them into the ecosystem of being able to then go acquire and target the cards they want. And I think one of the learnings there is, cards are not completely liquid. Like, it's going to take time for somebody to come along and, purchase your card. And what the Gods token, I believe, will do is, like, in that play and earn cycle, give people a more liquid access into the overall gaming economy, where it's like, as they're doing, the necessary actions to acquire in the game, they can get their Gods token. And if they want to immediately go convert that into something else, either go buy in the marketplace, they'll be able to. So I think it'll add fluidity to the overall ecosystem that we've been missing, to date. And obviously just another key part of immediacy as well, because even right now with weekend ranked, for the Divine Order cards that in packs that people are earning, it's very much a delayed gratification prize, and getting into that sort of immediate cycle of I've done something and I feel the reward out of it, I think is going to be really important for getting us beyond where we are today and sort of acquiring more users into the game.
That's awesome. Just by seeing your updates with like the effects and the way that makes me feel, even like in the metaverse, if I could use the Gods token to like pay homage to Hyperion one day, you know what I mean? Here's your Gods token, bless me with some star power or some star points. Or the fact that you can take a card that's really rare and burn it. Are you guys thinking about maybe getting Gods for burning cards? Like, that's a gold Genesis?
So, potentially. Yeah, so when it comes to actually burning cards, based off of where I want things to go and based off of the natural burn that like you and I have both experienced when, we've lost access to wallets, there is a limited supply of Genesis overall. And I don't necessarily want to, cook the whole supply, so to speak. I do think there is room though for, systems to come online where it's like, hey, input, these cards, maybe specifically these cards at a certain shine and rarity, and you get an output out of the system, be it Gods token, be it access to a unique promo card. I think the place where I would hesitate is that those would burn. I prefer to sort of take them into our own, archive of cards
The
and
Hall of
have them
Fame, the
available.
Burn Hall of Fame.
And have them available potentially for prizing too in the future. Um, like
That's actually smart. I like
yeah,
that. It's that gifting economy,
the destruction of things still
Yeah.
makes me a little bit nervous.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't completely rule it out.
Wow. Also, for the layman's out there that are early to Gods Unchained, and you guys got to play it. All right, the link is in the description. A lot of people say that the core cards are those infinite supply. I know that new players get those, but I think some people on my camp are like, oh, I can trade these for actual money and get a 1 ETH one day. You know, what do you say to that? Like with the core cards and trading them for ETH, is that even possible?
So when we with core cards, to an extent, they are over time the amount of core cards in the ecosystems will continue to grow. And when we look at pulling cards, out of the ecosystem, core cards are a place where I would target first, more than anything else. And like, how do we pull cards, out of the ecosystem? So the first part is getting them into the ecosystem. So this is where, just core fusing, getting things onto the blockchain. You pull cards out of the ecosystem through shine fusing. So taking those meteorite cards and then shining them up to shadow, up to diamond eventually. And each diamond card, so like, that's where I'm totally on board with the concept of, look, give us your diamond core cards, and having an output like, God's token, or, access to, maybe even its own, unique pack of cards, again, from some, promo set or other equivalent. Like, I think that's going to be necessary for the overall ecosystem to flourish, because growth will consume a portion of the cards, but ultimately there needs to be a way to use them, use them to fertilize your land so that it produces more gods. There's a lot of possibility space around that.
Wow, and even what I said in the beginning with strong hands and GGing, like, there's so much cool like lore that you can take into where it comes to the gods atlas and even a Hyperion story. I don't know if you guys are exploring that storyline there, and because it's like a tier system here, so it's like Genesis, you got Trial, it's like, and then that's a reverse order in like the lore and the comic and the media, like.
And the lore behind the world continues to evolve. The other thing I would say is, the core set itself, however, isn't static. So the core set that we have today isn't the core set that we'll have forever moving forward. We are planning on basically doing a core set refresh where not only doing a balanced pass across core itself, but looking to add additional cards into the mix. And I think some of the experimentation here is add new cards into collation, new core cards that people can acquire, and potentially take some cards out of the core set for a time. Not saying that we would potentially sunset them for forever, but mixing it up a bit over time. So it's like, at this point, for these core cards that they're in the ecosystem, they've been fused up to meteorite, they're out there and available, but they're not acquirable through opening packs, at least for a period of time. Like, there's definitely some space there that we get to play with.
That's awesome. Someone said, I saw a meteorite core card sold for 500 a day, and someone said, rip whoever bought that. Who's here still has it on? And let me say, Archilles, something, I don't know that. I'm saying that shit wrong. Someone said a core set rework and full update. Oh, ooh la la. Very interesting recycling through evolution and redistribution. Very cool. We're gonna go back on the Gods Unchained train. I just wanted to ask, what's some of your favorite collectibles besides Gods Unchained that you could shout out? I think this space kind of needs other people to show love. I think there's always just like some toxic, from the workplace to even Twitter, and I'm just trying to like rebuild that whole thing. So who's another NFT that you probably think is really killing it and you really are proud of?
Yeah, I mean, I have to I do have to thank Axes for what they're doing in the space. The first blockchain game really to go huge, I would say. Uh, they are benefiting us, and I can say that directly through the analytics because I can see people from the Philippines joining GU, basically looking for that next big thing that Axis kind of has blown up. I think there are a lot of projects right now that are sort of in the nascent stages that are really interesting, but I have a hard time sort of promoting things that I can't play and touch myself. I think Decentraland and basically any of the games out there that are exploring this concept of land, it's something that I've been looking at as an interesting extension of pretty much any game that you can have. I still don't know exactly how we would integrate something like that into GU, but it's certainly something that I find interesting. On the other side of things, like there's this grand spectrum of NFTs between sort of like utility and, I know for Gods Unchained, for the cards, a lot of the focus is on just the utility of play. And then you sort of get it into the scarcity, side of things. And I've been fascinated by the avatar, projects, like you've got, CryptoPunks and, so many other takes on that. And, this scarcity uniqueness of art is fascinating to me because it's not something that really has existed before, like in the just greater internet economy. Like it has to an extent in games where it's like you get a unique achievement, so you've got your own unique icon, but seeing that taken to sort of this extreme and just seeing the value that people attach to that has been, it's like it blows my mind what people are trading the CryptoPunks at. Like
For real, we came a long way from just sticks and things on the wall, hieroglyphs, to now GAN art, generative. And it's just, I think people are just anticipating that future, that AI, that generative, that it's art imitates life, and that's just the genome, I feel. People are shouting out sewer rats in here. Speaking of avatar projects, Arabian camels. Oh my God, merit-based avatars for GU. Merit-based avatars for GU? Question mark.
I think I will use one of my favorite terms. Certainly plausible.
And something about you guys that I love a lot is that with the first interoperable collab what you guys had with Ethermon, I thought that was genius. I think it was one of the first ever collabs in the NFT space.
That's an interesting one in that God, I have such a hard time saying it, interoperability, but it's one of the things that we have a lot of room to grow on, and not just in the collab space. Like this is an area of the blockchain that at least I looked at the beginning and I'm like, this is actually both fascinating and dangerous in that there is also plenty of room for what I would almost call like hostile interoperability, where it's like you talk about burning cards, where another game could basically be like, hey, give us your GU cards and we will give you XYZ, and they can sort of take things out of the ecosystem.
That is weird. That's kidnapping of the NFT.
Yeah, like it's like the robber baron days of NFTs may yet come. Luckily, it hasn't happened yet. We're all kind of in this crazy journey together so far, so it's been largely benevolent. But it is interesting just in what could happen in that space. We'll see. And obviously, the fun side of it is like with CryptoKitties and allowing people to have multifunction use. They can have their CryptoKitty and they can come have it on their board in GU. It's sort of like a very light touch level of it, but it certainly can go quite a bit deeper than that.
Yeah, I look forward. I look forward.
I think for us, we've kind of got to figure out how we're using all of the NFTs correctly within our own space. But as that sort of that possibility space gets explored, the opportunities beyond that are kind of ridiculous. Like, one of the great aggregators of content and IPs right now is like Fortnite, for instance. Shout out to all my friends and former coworkers at Epic. And, like that's, like you can almost see that extension to, a blockchain game where it's like you have a blockchain game that is the aggregator of NFTs in terms of interoperability, where it's like, hey, whatever IP, game, you've got that NFT and it has the use, over here, cosmetic or otherwise. So yeah, there's certainly some big space there.
I love that. I can't wait to see, the big collab or the big metaverse that you guys go into, and you have your statues there, and you have your players there, and they have their robes or their something, some identifiers. Because people in this community just want to be loved. I wanted to say, to all the 32 people in here, make sure you like the stream, okay? That helps generate this video for more people to see it. You're going to be able to watch the VOD. And also, shout out to the Fada and all the people in there. I know, let me go look at your questions. So I know you probably guys are throwing questions. Should be one of the... Orfeo, who is ratified? Orfeo, who is ratified? All right, I wanted to say, and I'm going to give you my strategy. We're going to have a little bit of fun. But all I do is play Deception, and I have like a 70% win ratio. I don't want to touch anything else. I'm loyal to her, Ludia. She's my favorite. I love her, the way she looks. I love the way she makes me feel. Pause. But, all that jazz. What do you suggest? Especially in Deception, when can I get a mana unlock so I can beat all these aggro players?
Because everything needs to have a weakness. Like we start doing mana unlocks inside of Deception, and then things get crazy. Like I think my advice, like if you wanted to take the win rate up, the way I've always approached it, because I agree, like Deception is my first love. I love using people's cards against them,
dude.
But like I almost go back to like days when I was building, MOBAs. Like when, I was lead champion designer on Infinite Crisis. Part of my approach there was, I would go and play the other MOBAs, and I would play every role with at least 5 different champions at least 5 different times. And as you play the other parts of the matchup, you gain an understanding of like what makes you sweat, what makes you excited when the other person plays. And like when you're taking it up a notch, it's like if you go and you play light, you play war, you play nature, and you play the various forms of the decks, you start to get an understanding from that other side of things of what you can do differently, as yourself on Deception. So, I've done that tour of my own of going and playing, Chosen One and Light, and just even if you're not playing, fully optimized decks, you're pushing outside your comfort zone to experience the other side of the board actually makes you better with your primary deck, because it gives you that extra little bit of insight as to what puts your opponent on tilt. Like for those of you who don't know the concept of tilt, it's why I was a good paper Magic player, in that putting somebody on tilt is when you put them outside of their comfort zone. It's when they're no longer thinking clearly because they're a little bit stressed, they're uncomfortable. And
it's happened to me way off too much.
Yeah, like even in digital card games, part of your goal as a player is to put your opponent on tilt. When they're on tilt, they're only responding to your actions. They're not thinking ahead on their own. And even avoiding yourself going on tilt, it's like when you get that greater awareness of, almost getting into your opponent's head. You've got that, like even in that, aggro matchup, if you can understand, what they're thinking, what they're trying to do, little disruptions to their plan, even sometimes if it's not, the optimal play, even like when you disrupt what they're looking to do, that can put them on tilt. It's one of the reasons I love Deception. It's one of the best ways to sort of disrupt plans. And like, man, so many people like concede to go on tilt when it's like they cast my own card against me. And yeah. Put your opponent on tilt, win big.
I put my opponents on tilt by having 2 Raptures in my decks, Orpheo's Guild in my decks, Orpheo himself, and I'm just wiping. When I'm wiping, I gotta wipe because they just come and especially when you play nature, it just comes and comes and comes, and then that final straw when you just take their, uh, orcs or whatever that bull that rams you and then hit him with it. It's so funny, so good. Um, what is your favorite champion? I don't know if you can say that, but I think Death's champion is very powerful. Um, Probably one of the greatest ones. And then I'm biased to Orfeo, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think the champion that I've always loved the most, and this is sort of outside of the gameplay, but like Valka's always been my favorite. Like when we got back the final art of Valka, yeah, like you
Oh my
talk about
god.
like earlier you talked about like things you love.
Mhm.
Uh, when that character ultimately came to life, yeah, that one was important to me because having grown up in an era of the ultimate warriors for women being in g-string bikinis, getting to create a character that is strong and powerful in my own game, that mattered a lot to me. So love each of the champions in their own way, but Valka has a special place in my
You
heart.
heard it first. She's probably gonna have a comic book, guys. I'm just joking. Because I mean, I love that you like that. I mean, it's a very powerful card. It has a presence. It has that feminine presence for sure when it hits the stage. What were you gonna say? You had a thought.
I was gonna say, like, for the one that like I identify with most, like most closely to myself, I think is Lysander. Um, I've always loved his story,
Champion of
and
Parthon.
like, all right, let's be frank. Uh, I've been in lockdown, in Sydney now for a month. Life has been crazy ever since COVID came into the world, and just gets crazier now with the Delta strains. You know, uh, mental health is a challenge right now, even for the best of us, and that's part of why characters like Lysander resonate with me. It's the idea of being rebuild yourself, scars and all. You can still be a hero in your own story, and that even when we're at our most broken, it doesn't mean that the journey's over. So a bit of that message of sort of hope and rebuilding, and the beauty of scars, so to speak.
I love
I
that
like
you
that.
said that because when I did lose my GU cards the first time, I was in a funk. I think GU literally kind of catapult me to make content and do this stuff. So just seeing the players in the community, um, it's really not toxic. It really is an inviting place. You have really good leaders and priests. Sometimes I'll occasionally talk shit. Speaking that, I think we need a comms network between players so they can talk to each other. That shit would be funny. It would be crazy. I know it gets dicey though, because people are gonna
Yeah.
rage. It's funny, but yeah, you guys helped me out a lot in the process, and it's more than an NFT to me. It's like something I'm gonna share with my children one day, and I think you guys cultivated a great community. It wasn't always easy, but what do you contribute to? What does it take to avoid like toxic communities? And I think you guys did it well. And I know coming from your background, you could maybe speak on that and what you really apply to this ecosystem here.
Yeah. So some of it for me is I've been a part of live games basically my whole career. Started off in massively multiplayer online role-playing games, so built up some asbestos armor emotionally pretty quick. Uh, on my side of the fence, um, you know there is no small amount of hate. You know, even when I believe I've made the best decision possible in a scenario, you know, sitting on the other side of it, players may not understand it, and there can be a lot of hate and rage. Even though I keep my Discord DMs open, there are times when I dread, in the morning clicking on them to see what's been written to me. But I still think it's important to keep those lines of communication open, and I can do it because I do understand that there is this this thin line between love and hate, and something you love can make you angry, and that it's worth listening to even what we would consider the most toxic people, because if you can get past the words and get down to the heart of what they're experiencing and what is making them upset, it's an opportunity to improve things overall. I think for our community, and with the number of sort of thought leaders and just people who welcome new members in, the approach there from my side has always been trying to arm the community with as much information as possible, and having our community team keep engaged, doing things like the pre-patch notes on balance to try and inform people of what's coming. It's trying to keep the information flow smooth, and even on that front, that's one of the things that I actually quite enjoy. And right now I haven't had as much time as possible to go do it. We are in the hunt for an executive producer to sort of, that's one of those things where it's like, help take some of the burden off of me so I've got more time to sort of dive into some of that fact finding and research from the community, because ultimately the community plays the game more than the developers ever possibly could. It's just a numbers game. So we've got 40 some odd people on the GU team. Even if we spent all our waking time playing the game, in the first hour that the game is live after an update, in the first day, like a magnitude more of games of GU are played, and players are going to see things that we've never seen. And it's part of keeping that open mind that though we are the keepers of the game in many ways, we will always understand and know the game less than our players to an extent, just because of the time differential. And getting to that understanding, like, it keeps, I think, for me, avoiding a level of condensation that I think you can see out there in the industry at times, of like you don't know what you're talking about, I'm the lead designer. You don't know what you're talking about, I'm the game director. I call it keeping that kernel of doubt around of like, look, I know what I intended, or I know what the team intended, but that doesn't mean that it happened. So I think I would hope, at least with the community, in their interactions with me, they've seen that openness to take feedback, even when it's harsh, and accept it and own it and try and make it better.
Yeah, this is the beautiful conundrum of building a play to earn global game like this, and I think you guys done well. And I always say, better to don't lead by position, but lead by influence. So from the bottom up, and even when, shout out to Aramis. I know if you're in the chat, you're amazing. Thanks for setting us all. Aramis, she was talking to a friend of mine, Efro Poker, and he was like the world winner of an arena one time. I don't know if you know what that is. Efro Poker. I don't know. Efro. So all right, but he was.
I'll have to go do my research after.
But he was saying that you, Clay, you developed the ways that the cards work, correct, and how they balance each other. That takes a high level mind to do that. What do you think? What do you for that's question one? What do you think after that? How do you have the high level mind to do that? Second is, what's the next cycle look like for that type of mindset?
So, this is, it would be great if I could claim credit for everything. But part of my job, if I am doing it right, is having people on the team who, much like the players, know those aspects better than me. So, I get my time, playing future expansions and reading over the documentation and sort of giving feedback. But it really is, the individual designers on the team, for this, this next set, even some people who are no longer with us, who played the primary role in building that content. What I'm providing there is some of the high level philosophy. So, this comes into like where, we wanted to make sure that like people who just have the welcome set and the core cards can get up to Mythic, they can compete. I think we have to acknowledge that you know, people who just have access to core and welcome are at a disadvantage over those who have access to Genesis and Trials. But there is a deliberate level of balance there so that it's not a brick wall. Because I think anyone who's played games, like particularly on mobile, like you hit that point where like it is a brick wall where it's like if you don't purchase that next thing, like you can't advance. And like if we're going to have a play and earn system, we wanted to make sure that the advantage was in percentile, where it's like, yep, if you've got access to Genesis cards, you're going to have a higher win percentage, but it's not dominating. And
yeah, because I've got beaten by core straight up, like decks from nature.
Yeah, and that's what sort of bubbles into like the design, of the future sets as well. It's making sure that the next set isn't something where it's like that is the answer. Go buy the next set and you're going to be a top player. It's like nope.
Power
it's
creep,
gonna,
right? Power creep.
Yeah, it is weaving through those cards into the current meta to change the meta to bring new elements in. It does potentially make some decks obsolete. Or require them to sort of adjust to the new norm. God, I wish it was out today. We're currently, the team is hard at work on getting L2 purchasing up and running. As I get breakfast delivered.
Nice.
Sorry.
No. That's love.
But yeah, like I think I can't spoil too much, or Aramas is gonna break lockdown to come beat me. But the thing I am most excited about for the upcoming set is the extra possibility space it's going to add into the overall meta. I think it's going to disrupt some of the current plans and be good and healthy for the game overall. And it's. You talk about that high level mind, and some of that high level mind goes back to what I had said earlier about understanding that what you have crafted isn't going to be perfect from the get-go. And huge kudos to the design team and everyone on the gameplay squad that are crafting those sets and their openness to sort of take feedback and look at what they've done right, look at what they've done wrong, and make tweaks to it. Certainly more difficult in the world we have now with Genesis and Trials locked. That certainly keeps me up at night at times.
For sure. Aramis says always watching. I
yeah, always
watching. Do both. She's always watching. I don't know, man. She might be on the eagle eye on some Shia LaBeouf stuff. But I was gonna say, do you think? And I know you got breakfast to eat. I don't want to get hot. I don't want to.
Yeah, no worries.
But you guys have a first mover advantage being the first trading card game, I believe, on the blockchain. That is correct. And do you think it's about being first or doing it the right way? Because from now on, in the next P2E explosion, you got all this stuff coming. How do you stay competitive?
Yeah, so, it is interesting in that there is a first mover advantage and disadvantage in that, a lot of what we've done, other players in the space can sort of learn from our mistakes. And I think, you see this in blockchain in general, in that there can at times be a lot more hype and excitement about your projects that are unplayable, where it's like, they don't have, even an alpha out yet, but the promises of what it could be are huge, versus something like Gods Unchained, where, anyone out there can come in, and without, a big blocker to entry.
Are you talking about Star Citizen?
Star Citizen is at least playable, but there's plenty of games out in the blockchain space right now where like you can go and pre-purchase. And one of the challenges I think for us is because we are live and we are real. I know that one of the things that I've struggled with at times is there is just this overhead to keeping everything running that sometimes I wish I could go back in time and be like, man, I would love to spend just a little bit more time in development before things go out. And it does make things at times more difficult for us too, because, blockchain is changing so rapidly. So, even when I talk about, bringing the next set online for sale, what we had initially built, even for the Trial of the Gods, sale doesn't really apply anymore. Like, when we did Trial of the Gods, we didn't have Immutable X. So we're having to sort of go back and rebuild and, totally understand, the frustration in the community it's like, you've done this before, why can't you just do it now? And, certainly it adds to my stress at times of like, man, we've got to, go rebuild things that are pre-existing. I do know that for GU on the whole, there is a lot of, particularly the launcher and like the metagame that we just have to rebuild, in the coming months and even years. I think for something like GU, where we have been there from the beginning, we need to look at it as like a continual evolution of the game, and that what is working today, like if we just stick there, it's not going to sustain. Like it just has to keep growing and getting better. Like particularly if we're going to break through into the mainstream, we still have to overcome some of the last hurdles to make it easy, because it is still too scary to go create your first wallet, to get your fiat currency into ETH and then go make purchases. Like we've got to reduce those barriers to entry, and behind the scenes, absolutely working on that, but it's still going to be a road before we get there.
For sure. And I know you guys got it. As far as just, this is a side question, but Kusama and Polkadot are building some cool things with their Parachains and all that jazz. Are you bullish on having maybe Parachains with Gods Unchained, or does that go back to the interoperability thing? You just hunting for those certain IPs?
Yeah, it is really interesting, and I think it's some of what's going on in the space in general right now of figuring out to. So actually, let me take a step back. So one of the things that I've observed, being in the gaming space, and I think it applies elsewhere as well, is typically you've got the dominant force. So in any general genre, you're going to have the game that is just the biggest in the genre. Like in the MMO space, it's been World of Warcraft for a long time. You typically have a second place, a third place, and then a lot of also rans. And I think what we're seeing right now, like in the blockchain space, is that sorting hat of like, who's going to be the dominant player, who's going to be second, who's going to be third, and then what's going to end up with the also rans. And my expectation would be that a lot of like the side chains over time will be the also rans, or we'll have to sort of bubble up into joining some of the big players. And if I knew exactly how that would shake out, I could go invest my money right now and be sipping my ties on the side. But that's the phase that we're entering, I believe, in the blockchain space. And one of the things that is exciting about blockchain in general, and sort of with the ownership of assets, is there's room for things to flow depending on how that does sort out. And ultimately, like with the different bets out there, some of it's just going to come down to like, what is it that the world and those participating in like the NFT space truly value? Like, is it decentralization? Is it speed? Is it cost? Is it accessibility? Because each approach sort of has different levels to where these answers lie, and we'll see. I know for us with Immutable X, a lot of that focus has been on decentralization and on still being part of Ethereum and relying on the L1 Ethereum network. And I know that that's one of the things that does help me sleep at night, knowing that we don't have custody of all the assets. That would certainly be a harder one for me, like, because that's not really what I got into the space to do.
For sure.
Does that answer the question?
That did for sure. I love that. I think when you're talking about just those layers, we always think about who's the best, but it's like we can actually have layers here and still have big giant communities, and they all scale, and we'll all be in that culture narrative, you know. So that's really cool. Immutable, like, so when it comes down to the God's token, what, there's only 26 million, right? What is the full total supply, or is it?
So originally, it had been 20 million. That is one of the things that we were working with the white paper, because a lot of the feedback from the community was a preference towards a token that had more supply, so that as players are earning tokens, they're earning whole values of tokens and not fractions of a token. So I don't have the final number that we're going to land at, but we're looking at potentially hundreds of millions of tokens, so that when it's denominated, it's not 0.0001 gods, it's 100 gods, is I think where we're leaning to be.
Okay,
but
so,
it is a limited overall supply of the token.
Okay, but you can't tell us the total supply or ballpark.
Until the lawyers say so, no. But we're leaning definitely towards the higher supply at this point.
I think with, like, when I see Zed I mean, I'm an NFT guru, and so to speak. I'm just joking. I use that term loosely. But seeing like Zed and the horse racing, will I be able to wager my God's tokens for like game bets, like, or I wouldn't call it bets, just like exchanges?
Yeah. So like the concept of like pink slip matches, has been around, at least in our headspace for quite some time. So yeah, I guess the thing I can say for sure that I know I definitely want to go to is beyond weekend ranked, beyond constructed ladder. It's like the ability to go enter into a constructed event with your deck. You could potentially enter with at its most simple, it would be stars. You could enter with God's token. You could enter with ETH, and it is a premium event where depending on how you do, you're coming out with more than you went in with.
Yeah. World Star Poker, watch out.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I want to go to. The idea of potentially like a direct challenge where both sides of the direct challenge are ponying up be it cards or ETH or gods is certainly possible. The terminology I would use there is like, what is the orange jumpsuit factor of any of that? And this is unfortunately where in this space it's like, okay, let's go talk to the lawyers and figure it out. One of the great things though about the blockchain space is that because the games and the results are available from our API, like in theory that's not even something that we necessarily have to build ourselves. A third party could effectively build out a system for wagering on matches. It's one of the things I like about the blockchain space, that it's not just us that has to be sort of the team that's pushing everything forward.
Yeah, your zealots will do that for you. Shout out to Token Trove, David, GU Dex, all those things that have come from this thing, and I know it's probably going to scale. You definitely have built something great. My one of my last couple questions. Anyone has one more question in the chat? Please put it in. I know this man got to go and dominate the work field and the metaverse. But
I would dominate this breakfast burrito.
What you got? A breakfast burrito? Oh my gosh, you're so lucky. Breakfast for dinner for this guy, I guess. If you had a choice to be a human, a cyborg, or an alien, which one would you be and why?
I think I would probably, because alien is too nebulous for me. Like, I don't know what type of alien it would be.
You got an alien brain, bro. You should have been an alien.
Yeah, I would go with the. I would not be opposed to being a cyborg. For me, like for all of my stats, my penalty at character creation was crap lungs. I've had pneumonia 3 times. I've got bad asthma. Like that's part of like with COVID and everything that I've been terrified of. I'm like, oh my God. please don't let me catch the COVID. So yeah, like the concept of being able to replace my lungs with like bionic lungs, like
That
that's
would be
kind of
so
sweet.
sick.
And like my eyes, like I am legally blind. I have worse now, 20 like beyond 22,000 vision. Like if I take my glasses off, I can't see your face on the
Holy
screen.
moly.
It's completely blurry. And I'm like, yeah, put some bionic eyeballs in with like heads up displays and stuff. Like, oh, count me in. So yeah, I'll go cyborg.
Or I get a finger that just press F5 really fast so I could get a PFP avatar real quick before the next person. Ben Morrow, I don't know if you know who he is, but he said an alien. It's just you guys are very. I look up to you guys, and you guys have two different answers, so that's cool. So there is two questions. Someone said, "When white paper?"
Soon. Essentially, it's in review with lawyers right now. So we're close.
Holy moly!
Uh,
Nobody has
so
white
yeah,
papers no more, Chris. Nobody has white papers. They just have roadmaps.
yeah,
I miss the
it's
white
interesting.
paper.
It's interesting in that our approach with the tokens has been conservative in that we want to make sure that we are as compliant as possible, so that once we launch and go live, we're not going to run any issues down the line. So we've moved potentially slower than some others, but I think we're going to be in a really solid place once we do launch.
Sweet. Someone said, "What are the main events of the roadmap for the 6 months to come? And can you give us dates or general periods for each?"
So I think what I have learned in without restraint is that giving dates is
Yeah, it's a no-go.
it's a no-go,
Yeah.
because like even when I'm like, can you give us a rough idea? And it's like, I could based on what I know today, but the world is always changing. I mean, I can say that what the team, the team, we have different squads, each working on their own thing. Primary focus right now is on getting the next card set, out the door. It is complete, internally playable. We've been playtesting hard on it, but it's the supporting systems to make sure that payments go through smoothly, and that we address some of the issues we had with the Trial of the Gods sale. Like, I know that there were a lot of people who had purchases that got stuck and they had to file customer support tickets. We're trying to iron all that out. But that is one key focus. Alongside of that is getting the Forge and Core fusing back online, followed up by that with Shine fusing. And beyond that Shine fusing, it is looking at a system that then drains core cards out of the economy for other awards, so to speak. The flip side of that is team going full tilt on getting the token into the ecosystem. I think that's going to do huge things for GU and Playtoearn and just how the overall ecosystem works. And it creates this foundation where we just keep building systems on top. When it comes to the game itself, one of the things that basically has existed since I joined is something I've never been quite happy with, in that state, like the server is authoritative. Like, you can't do something on the client and then send it to the server, and the server's not going to trust the client. But state is held on the server and each of the clients. So like the internal logic of the game is run on all of the systems. And this has an upper limit for stability. When you're holding state across 3 different places, the chance, because of the internet, because of just logic, because of race conditions, that one of them is going to get out of sync, leads to an upper limit on potential stability, makes recovery from issues hard. So one of the things I've got the core client team working on right now is looking at refactoring how the client and the server interact, so that we're closer to what I've built in the past, where the server is authoritative, the server holds states, and then the clients are just essentially replaying what the server has told them the current state is, allowing the player to input actions, server transforms, comes back down. Getting to this creates a higher upper limit for stability. And if you're going to do things like pink slips, if you're going to do things like betting, you've got to have a much higher level of stability. You're talking at like that 99.9, and then your fluctuation is in that next decimal point. That will be a change that, I think initially, like any big change, probably will lead to a bit more instability at the start, but will allow us to get to sort of that next tier. Because with the current system, overall game stability has been hovering in like the 98% range, with that that first decimal point being the float, and it's just not good enough. So we're gonna have to go back to the drawing board a little bit, and I would see that coming, probably in Q4.
Those are those sexy things right there that people don't think are sexy, but I think are sexy because it's like taking time to build the infrastructure.
It's the worst part about game development, because ultimately when that is done, nobody cares because it just works. And
I care.
There are other, but like a new player will never care that it happens. It just works, and that's sort of the expectation. There are other things that are coming down the pipe there. The UI UX team has put together an absolutely beautiful design for play history, which is something the game desperately needs. That's something that I'm looking forward to. We're not actually all that far from doing some testing on mobile.
Wow.
Not public release, but something that we'll see, I think, in the not too distant future is, particularly like you talk about some of our key members of the community, like getting them into a test flight, on Apple or potentially on Android, so that they can see where we're at. It's certainly not ready for publicly release, but getting to the point where we can play, like we're not too far from that as well, which is another key step on that sort of journey to going mainstream.
Yeah. Oh, you're at Starbucks. Oh, what are you playing, sir? Oh yeah, just some mobile GU. You want to learn about Playtoearn, and all of a sudden you just evangelize for the gods all over the world. Yeah.
If I was commuting, I could play on the way to work, but there's no commuting right now because we're
maybe on what, the cycling club. You know what I mean? Everyone's multitasking more nowadays. Maybe just GU and cycle. Thanks for the answers, Chris. Eager to see the new set. We know Agaro on the team has pages and pages of UI tweaks ready. Iago. Am I saying that right? All right.
Yeah, no. Kudos to our UI UX team. Best pair I think I've worked with. The stuff that they've got sort of pre-wired, even just like the rework of the arena screen, because that's been one of our pain points for a long time. We just need to catch up to them, And on that note, if I can do a final sort of pitch, we are still hiring for engineers. We are growing the team so that we can complete many of these things faster. So if you know anybody who wants to be part of the bleeding edge of brand new technology and systems, be happy for the referrals.
That's awesome. Tell grandma. I just had one more thing to tell you. I think that it was a great conversation. I really enjoyed your presence here, and I really believe in you. And I'm happy that you're finally in. I feel like you're in your purpose. This is like your full purpose, and you're very complex, multi-layered human, and I support it. And I'm gonna continue to play from desktop to mobile, and continue to collect. But on the show, it's called Live with the Sensei, and I need you to channel your inner sensei to give some words of advice, or maybe an alpha leak, whatever you want, really, to the community on your Discord, on Twitter, Gods Unchained as a whole, to the space, whatever. I need you to channel your inner sensei, Clay, and I need you to speak, and we're gonna roll out of here.
Well, so I'm gonna probably take a little bit more time than I should.
I love that.
There's a story that I've been wanting to share, more publicly, and it's from my time at Wizards. In that, I went into Wizards one morning after a mildly traumatic event, and I was really excited to share the story. So essentially, what had happened, like, show up to work, and I'm telling the story to my coworkers, and what had happened the night before is I'd been out grocery shopping, and a group of high school girls came in, and they were making a ruckus, and they were sort of fighting, and they came in. The manager for the store, like, I get them to calm down and leave, and they go down the aisle I'm in, and they're knocking stuff off the shelves. They're yelling at each other, and then one of the girls, brings out a can of bear mace and sprays it at one of the other girls. Bear mace didn't hit me directly, but I have asthma, and I'm like choking and coughing. Whole store had to be evacuated because the circulation system took it throughout the whole store. We're outside there. Police come. EMS is there. Older woman had a really bad reaction to it. So I told the story to my coworkers, except I didn't tell it like that. When I told the story to my coworkers, I had said a group of Black girls came in and they were causing a ruckus. And when I told the story, one of my coworkers said that detail wasn't necessary. I'm like, wait, what? He goes, that detail wasn't necessary. And I'm like, what detail? You didn't need to say that it was Black girls that came in. And I'm like, but it's true. That's the story. And he goes, it doesn't matter. And he called me on it and he said, if it had been a group of white girls that came in, would you have said it was a group of white girls that came in? And I thought about it and I got through my cognitive dissonance. I'm like, no, I wouldn't have. I would have said a group of girls came in. And if you want to know how a work culture stops from becoming toxic, it's that. My coworker was a friend of mine. My coworker knew I didn't mean anything bad by it, but he held me to a higher standard. He wanted me to be a better person, and he wanted me to use language and fight against my own prejudices at that little level. And if I had a message for anybody as a sensei, it would be hold the people you respect most to a higher standard. Be willing to have uncomfortable conversations with them, because that's how any work environment stops from being toxic. Because if we can't hold those people that we trust most, how are we going to hold, the sort of bad actors? And on the other side of that, again, for me, like my coworker at the time was half my age. I had to push through my own, prejudice and my own cognitive dissonance about how I used language and my own sort of sense of like defensiveness. Open yourself up to be a little bit more vulnerable. And if you can do that on both sides of the fence, we can all have just a little bit more fun at work. We can all be a little bit more open and, live in a just ever so slightly better world. Yeah. So that would be my message.
That was good. That's like some egalitarian things that you're already ahead of your time. I could tell you're an old soul, and we appreciate you over here on this side. What I'll say is make sure you follow Gods Unchained on Twitter, go into Discord, play the game. It's super fun. You'll love it, and it'll help your brain. It'll help you. It's like chess to me. It's like a game of chess to me. So also, 1 gods equals 1 BTC one day. I'm calling it now. All right, guys.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure. It was an honor. Live the dream, eat ice cream, and above all, stay content. You mind staying in the chat? We're going to go to music, and I'm going to say some final words after. See you guys. Bye, chat.
Bye.